Okay, here we are again. Project T-maxx. Guess to have a new identity, I guess. Last we saw it, it had the Pico 28 in it, but I had installed this center differential. Took a lot of weight out of the car. When I did that, I took almost 500 grams out. That's an amazing amount. So anyway, that's now in there. Well, I took the Pico back out, and I want to put the brushless in, but I want to try something different, because we got the other conversion working pretty well, but just kind of had an itch to change it a little bit. So what we decided to do now, remember, this up here is the front of the car. This motor is mounted backwards. This is the rear, right here. So normally the motor would be back here. Those are the motor mounts for the nitro. So what I've done is I've spun it around, and I've added this small plate right here. Now the problem I was having with running the center differential is it definitely improves its handling, but I couldn't get down to a low enough gear ratio. The T-maxx gear ratios that come with that whole setup, whether they're aftermarket or T-maxx, are all pretty much the same gear ratio. You can't lower your gear ratio very easily that way. And I've got about as large of a spur gear as I can run here, and I was actually running like a 10-tooth clutch bell on my nitro motor. It was still a little high. Got it to run pretty good, but anyway. So now we're coming back to this. Well, so what am I going to do to get my gear ratios down? I want to be able to run larger tire if I want to. Here I am sitting here trying to look for, a small low profile monster truck tire, and just kind of was bugging me. So I kind of got to thinking, what am I going to do? And I came up with a little solution, I hope. We'll see how it all works out. I'm going to show you in just a minute. Okay, now it looks a little bit different. So what I decided to do is I was going to come up with a gear reduction system. And this is what I thought. I had a whole bunch of Mod 1 5mm hole for a 5mm shaft gears, bunch of pinion gears. This is the one. That's a 15 tooth, and this one's a 15 tooth. This one happens to be a 22. Now I don't have this bolted together right now. The motor's in, this plate's set, and actually this gear mesh is set. Now this pinion's not tight right now. It'll slide right off, but that gear mesh is set, so I can essentially tighten that set screw, and I'll be back on right here. Because I have it adjusted from this adjustment right here. Now if I change my pinion right here, I can still adjust to whatever, either up or down on this pinion right here. So that one's out of there. So then what I decided is I want to have a counter shaft for my reduction. That's one of the reasons why I turned the motor around and put it on the front instead of having it back on the back. So I can keep all my stuff running the same direction. And I'm really interested to see what it does with as far as the torque, because it's applied, the power is applied to the truck itself while it's driving. So what I did is I used 16 by 8 by 16 millimeter bearings, similar to all of most of my stuff that I run in 8 scale. I still haven't put the flat spots in this 5mm shaft yet. I'm just loosening that shaft to pull this out because one of my bolts holding the thing together is in the way, but no problem. So this is just a 5mm shaft. This shaft right here, that happens to be a universal dog bone, just one of the older set screw style shafts, exactly 5mm. Bearing that goes on it. I opted to use the much larger 8 by 16 bearing, and this actually has a sleeve in it. So that runs nicely on that big bearing. Everything is super secure too. There'll be adjustability with this piece. Still figuring out how it goes together. Okay. With this one, I have some adjustability right here. I'm going to try and stay to a 15 right here, because I don't need much. I'm not going to really adjust it right there, because that's like pretending that I have a 15 on here already with this. So 15 and 15, it would be the same if I had a 15 here, all 1-to-1. Well, this is a 22, so the 15 with the 22, 7 more teeth. So for each rotation of this, for this to get around one full turn, 15, 15, For this to get around one full turn, this still has 7 more teeth, thus my reduction. So what I'll be able to do is I can change with tons of combinations of gears. Set that there. Bring this in for a second. I can go with tons of combinations of gears with on the counter shaft and the motor itself without even going to the other settings, where I can adjust the pinion meshes individually. Each one essentially kind of stays set. I'm thinking I'm going to get a lot of gear noise, of course, so that's like a 5mm with 32 pitch gear. So I might run that on the front side, the first part of the counter shaft. Now the interesting thing about this is a center differential with, this has disc brakes on it, which that won't because we're running electric brakes. This is a center differential out of an 8 scale buggy. Solid, big, heavy duty stuff. Smaller pinion gear too, thus lighter. The interesting thing too is this tranny, we'll call it a tranny, is 180 grams, all complete, all that whole thing, right there. Just this gear, 65. Oh, no, let's see, that's not right. No, 65 grams is the whole counter shaft assembly. That's how much that whole thing weighs. So we're about 250 grams, somewhere in there. The T-maxx assembly, transmission, case, and gears, over 350 grams. And the reciprocating mass is insane. I mean, this is all Robinson Racing stuff. Spendy made it super bulletproof, super strong. Slipper clutch was awesome. Totally love it. This is Robinson Racing first and second gear. The only gear that I never replaced on this transmission, that's still a stock one, is this first gear. Because it shifts out of first gear usually quick enough that the power really doesn't get applied until it gets into the second gears. This one happens to be locked out, and so there's 2 different set screws for the centrifugal gear shift that this has for the 2-speed transmission. One is the tension to adjust when it shifts. The other is a set screw that goes down and tightens down onto the shaft. Tightens down onto the shaft to hold this in place on the shaft. So what I did is I set a set screw down to hold it into the shaft, and then I took another set screw and I screwed it in on top of the other one, and that essentially locks it. So it still works the same way, but it's always in second gear. That way with the speed control, I wasn't messing with the speed control with it all of a sudden running up and then shifting, because it's not good for the electrics. So that's how come I'm doing this change. I'm lowering the center of gravity by, no, I don't know. I'm not going to put a percentage on it because I haven't tried to figure it out, and I'm not going to. But the bottom line is, with this setup, I'm going to be able to run my brace over across. I'll be able to put any size 4-cell. I mean, huge. I have so much adjustment. I'm going to move it either this way or that way to help with my balance, or forward or rearward to help with my balance. My speed control setup is going to be probably right in here. Dual steering servos. I'll tie those together. I'll probably end up having, so I don't know how many, probably 800 ounces of steering. We'll see. That'll give me enough. And then I'm going to mount my radio assembly, my receiver and stuff, on a small mount above. And then it'll, I mean, this isn't even bolted in place right now, and it is just going to be a real solid, dependable system. So we'll see what happens. I'll keep you posted.